AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago, and it gives me great pleasure to address you here today at the Youth Forum of our annual Health, Safety, Security and Environment Conference. This year marks the 25th year of the HSSE Conference and Exhibition, and we believe that this still remains an effective vehicle for the sharing of information, the encouragement of best practice, and the elevation of national HSSE awareness as well as standards. Each year, we extend invitations to 120 students in forms 4 to 6 to actively participate in this forum. This year, we partnered with Restore a Sense of I Can to be able to reach a much wider audience. This session is open to students from 9 Caribbean countries. Before I hand over to our presenters, I need to thank our sponsor, Point Lisa's Nitrogen Limited, for sponsoring this Youth Forum. The session today deals with one very important topic. Our presenters will be looking at environmental conservation as well as biodiversity. Our first presenter is Varsha Ramharrack, who is an environmental health and safety specialist with almost a decade of experience spanning in both the power generation and energy services field. Her current portfolio is lead fixed facilities specialist with GE Power. She holds a BSc honors with a double major in environmental studies and natural resource management and zoology from the University of the West Indies, and an MSc in occupational safety, health, and the environment. Varsha is a member of the Association of Energy Engineers. She has championed annual education outreach activities in both primary schools and secondary schools to edify students on reducing their carbon footprint, encouraging them to reduce waste and recycle where possible. Varsha is also the lead of AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago's environmental subcommittee. Our second presenter is Josanne Basanoo, who is a specialist at the Nutrient Model Farm and Agricultural Resource Center. She has more than a decade of experience in the fields of agribusiness and farming operations. Josanne holds a BSc of Honors in Agribusiness Management from the University of the West Indies and an MBA with distinction specializing in entrepreneurship and innovation from the Arthur Lockjack School of Business. Josanne is an advocate for sustainable development and environmental protection. She is a current active member of the AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago Environmental Subcommittee and a company's carbon footprint reduction team. Educating students on agriculture sustainable development is a key priority for Josanne. So without further, I will hand over to Josanne. Josanne and Varsha, I ask that you all to please keep your mics muted as well as your cameras off. Feel free to post your questions in the chat. At the end, we would allow you to open your mics and ask questions. But as they're presenting, if you can please keep your mics closed. Varsha, Josanne, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Melissa, for the introduction, and welcome to our 25th Youth Forum under the banner of the HSSE Conference. It is a pleasure to be here with you today, and I'm happy to see so many of you have, decided to participate in this session because it is a very important topic that we are, all facing globally, climate change. So before I proceed, I would like to ask a question via the poll. So you can proceed to fulfill the poll. The question is, what do you think is a greater threat? Is it climate change or the COVID-19 virus? So we'll just take like about a minute to complete the poll. So we have like 20 more seconds. Please feel free to complete. Okay, so out of the 57 participants, 47 responded. Oh, that's 48, still increasing. Okay, and 81% chose climate change. And, I will agree with you. And I can imagine the reasons why you chose climate change, because I'm probably sure you already know that some of these, let me just share the results. Okay, you're already aware that the effects of climate change is so broad. It affects almost every aspect of our being, of our existence. Okay, so I'm just going to close that. And Josanne, you just want to present?
So good afternoon, everyone. Varsha and I will be presenting this afternoon on climate change and biodiversity. So we'll begin the presentation.
So everyone, today is the 22nd of April, and it's also commemorating Earth Day. Earth Day has been incepted in 1970, so this is the 51st anniversary since Earth Day celebrations began. And the purpose of Earth Day is to raise the awareness of the status of our climate and Earth by extension. Over the last 5 to 7 decades, there has been a lot of scientific evidence suggesting that the Earth is warming, that climate is changing, not because you hear about, severe winter storms in some parts of the region, that you think it's, that there is no global warming, but climate change is occurring. And because of the La Nina and El Nino oscillation effects, you have variations in temperatures across the Earth's surface. So let's talk a bit about what can we do, or what do you think are some of the existing threats that we face currently? So let me ask another question. Is climate change a concern to you? Almost everyone responded within the first 10 seconds of this poll. So which means, and everyone responded positively, so which means yes. Only one person responded no. I would assume that must have been a blunder, because if you think that climate change is not a concern, think again. There is, as I said, mentioned before, there is a lot of scientific data that proves that climate change is affecting everything. So as simple as this year is already feels warmer than the last year. And there is scientific data that proves that over the last 5 years, those were deemed the hottest years on Earth, since climate scientists have been collecting and collating data and analyzing them. All right. So I will just end the poll, because 98% of you said yes, it is a concern to you. So there we go. As I said, only one participant responded no. Okay, Joe, you have to move the slides, please. So after our introduction about Earth Day, the status of the climate, we'd like to share a video with you that would be of interest to kind of set the tone for this presentation. Just bear with us. It's not playing.
No, miss, we just seeing a blank screen. Oh, okay, I see it now.
Okay, no, it's actually a video. So
Oh.
just bear with us a few more seconds, please.
Okay.
Yeah, the video is not showing Varsha, unfortunately.
Josanne, did you click the button before? You
Yeah.
shared?
Yeah, but
Okay,
I don't know
can
why
you
it's
just
not
put it
coming up.
back on slideshow? Well, do display settings and put it back with a slideshow and then.
Okay.
Okay, bear with us, okay? Because usually we would have had this where we would have interfaced with you all, but given that, we're facing a pandemic, we have to switch to virtual mode. And technology is not always that reliable, as some of you would have experienced while doing your online school classes, right?
Yes, miss.
You need to click it on the slide though, yeah.
Yeah, but you need to do display settings back to slideshow to swap presenter view. Josanne, can you put it on swap presenter settings?
Okay, I hope you enjoy that little mini clip. So as I mentioned, today is Earth Day, and the theme for this year's Earth Day celebrations is Restore Our Planet. It's important because we are so diverse. We are made up of so many different ecosystems, marine, terrestrial, and it's important that we learn to respect what we, have in our possession on Earth, respect our ecosystems. And I hope everyone, or more or less, that the definition of an ecosystem is where you have a network of the biota as well as the non-living things. So biota includes all plants, animals, humans as well. We are part of the animal kingdom, and includes the microorganisms because those are just as important as the larger organisms on Earth. And an ecosystem works together with, where both the biotic and abiotic factors work together to ensure that there is sustainability and sustenance for life. So all factors within an ecosystem are interdependent on each other, either directly or indirectly. So there are examples of the marine ecosystems. I'm sure lots of you have probably visited Tobago and have, been to the Booker Reef. You would have seen the corals. And that coral reefs are one of the most intricate marine ecosystems in the world, because that's where you have thriving, nutrient-enriched flora, fauna, and you have a plethora of different food chains there because it's so unique and so diverse that they form that larger marine ecosystem. So that's an example of a marine ecosystem and, coral reefs. And you have terrestrial ecosystems like a forest, for example, a rainforest. You have like the mangroves also. Mangroves are part of both terrestrial and marine because they form that border between the ocean and land. So why are ecosystems important? They help maintain different trophic levels in the ecosystem, in terms of the food webs, the food chains, the food cycles, as well as the, oxygen, carbon dioxide, the water, or hydrological cycles as well. They're important for regulating energy flow and ecological processes that provide stability within the food chains. So I think everyone would have done general science or agri-science, and you would have learned about the food chains and then the food cycles, food webs, they call it. Yeah. Okay. the process, nutrient cycling, occurs within ecosystem. So you have, as I mentioned, you have the water cycle or hydrological cycle, the carbon, the oxygen, nitrogen cycle. And these are important elements because they form, the greater part of the atmospheric ecosystems. And they also influence the terrestrial and marine ecosystems. So climate change which is, something that's existing. If we don't control our operations or our ways of living, when we affect the natural cycles, for example, the nitrogen cycle or the carbon cycle, if there's too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, this is what influences and affects our equilibrium in the atmosphere. And that contributes to global warming because there are more gases in the atmosphere. And everyone is aware of the greenhouse effect. So Earth allows a certain amount of sunlight to enter its surface, and the rest is either reflected or dispersed, scattered back into space. So if there is an abundance of these gases, the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, the heat becomes trapped, and that warms the Earth's surface. So that's just in a nutshell what the greenhouse effect entails. So if we continue to emit gases, or if we continue to waste and, because everything happens in a cycle. So the more demand we have for materials and goods, etc., it puts more demand on manufacturing, which, is part of the industrialization process. So where you have a plethora of those greenhouse gases now being emitted from industrialization, we have the greater problem of those gases being trapped by the greenhouse effect, and that warms the Earth, and that creates, that overall global warming. So climate change, I think I have mentioned this, before in terms of, given examples of what happens or what's a process from climate change, how it occurs. I'm not going to read everything. I think, it will be worthy if you were to start researching and reading about it. And there's so many different actions that you can take to help avert the climate crisis, because climate change is now considered a crisis. As in the polls, you have suggested that it is of a greater concern or a more severe threat than COVID-19. Right, so I'm going to hand over to you, Josanne. She's going to take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
So thank you, Varsha. You all hearing me? Good. So great. So as Varsha told you, what causes climate change? We actually went through this slide already, burning of fossil fuels. Remember, she mentioned that, and the greenhouse gas effect. Deforestation. So that's one of the effects of climate change and why we need to be very mindful of our activities to prevent such disastrous effects. So this slide shows us just some of the impacts of climate change. So our weather becomes much more unpredictable and extreme. You realize all the hurricanes we have had in recent times, the Hurricane Maria in Dominica in 2017, and Barbuda in 2017 with Hurricane Irma. You remember all the flooding we had in Trinidad in 2018. All these are effects of climate change, and the Amazon rainforest burning in Brazil in 2019. So if you realize, there's also melting of the polar ice caps. And this is very important for small island developing states as ourselves, the SIDS, because remember, we are small Caribbean islands, so we will be very adversely affected by rising sea level. And just to give you an indication of how much ice caps are melting, if you notice, Greenland's ice sheet lost an average of 200 gigatons of ice per year, and 1 gigaton of ice that's melted can fill 400,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So you could just imagine how much water and how much rise in sea level we are experiencing, and that's why we need to act now. Every little thing that we can do can actually help in fighting climate change. That's why we realize the importance of your role and to encourage your family and friends to do the same. So these are just some simple ways you could reduce the effects of climate change. And these are immediate changes, things that you can do one time. So instead of putting on the air conditioner all the time, you could turn on the fan, you could open the windows instead of just using all this air conditioning all the time, get some nice fresh breeze, nice ventilation. And you all could do that, I'm sure. Always remember to unplug your phone and laptop chargers when not in use. Remember, everybody's online school right now. So when we're not in use, try your best to unplug the phones and the laptop chargers. Have you ever wondered how much miles your apples and grapes have traveled before it reaches to your plate? So that is why we also encourage you to incorporate more local fruits and vegetables into your diet, because it reduces the food miles, the aeroplane that it takes to bring your apples and your grapes and all those things. You could cut down on that and enjoy a mango or an orange from outside. I think you all could do that as well. Everybody now is in the social media era, so we could spread the word of climate change, and the effects of climate change can be reduced. So we'd like to take a poll now. So do you think growing your own food is beneficial? Oh, we're getting a lot of responses. Very good. So far 100% is showing that we think growing our own food is beneficial. I totally agree with you. Growing our own food is very important. Great. Very good. So we had 100% of the participants agreeing that growing their own food is important. Remember, water is also another precious resource. So we want to turn off running water when not in use. So when you're brushing your teeth, when you're washing the wares, you could soap it up, and then you could actually use the water after that. Good. Another poll that we have, do you think climate change can help? Do you think you can help avert climate change crisis? Great, I'm loving the responses we're getting so far. Very good. Excellent. Great, so far we have 100% agreeing that you can help avert climate change crisis. So 67 participants out of 79 so far. Great. Thanks, Varsha. Okay, good. I'm trying to change this slide. 1 second. There's a little lag on my end. So we want to show you another video to just show you the impact of what we have been talking about. Sorry. Good, so that's just a reminder of all that we could do to help in this fight against climate change. So you might ask yourself, what is sustainability? Now, this is a nice word everybody likes to use, and it is very important for our future generations. Sustainability is achieved when humans interact with the environment so that ensures that there will be enough resources for current and future generations. And this can be assisted by the use of renewable resources such as solar, wind, and hydropower. So that we have another poll. Will you spread awareness about climate change and encourage others to help avert this climate crisis? Very good. I'm very proud of you all so far because I'm seeing 100% agreeing. And will you refuse single-use plastics? Turn off your power sources when not in use, conserve water, and drive less to encourage your parents to drive less? Very good. So I'm very happy that you all are on board about helping us with this climate crisis and being willing to be part of the change. Great. So we had 100% willing to spread the awareness of climate change and 76% willing to refuse single-use plastics, turn off power sources, and encourage their parents or themselves to drive less. Good. So we'll go back to sustainability. So the use of renewable resources would help us with sustainability. And some examples of renewable energy would be solar power, wind power, hydropower, so the water. Remember, Varsha spoke about the burning of fossil fuels. By using these renewable resources, we would actually be saving the planet. So there's a lot of, for example, in agriculture, they use solar power drip irrigation systems so that they will not actually have to use the diesel powered motors and stuff like that to get water to the fields. So that's just one simple example. My apologies for this lag. Good. So now we're going to look at the 7 R's of sustainability. Have you all ever heard about this before? Okay, so we're going to look at this. So rethink. That's changing your perception of the natural resources around you can influence and reduce your daily contribution to climate change. And we did speak about this, changing your mindset, changing the way you think about how we use our resources. You can refuse to use single-use plastics at the grocery store. You could avoid using those. You could actually carry your small items in your hand or walk with your reusable bag when you're going to the supermarket. I realize some groceries have already started doing this. Recycle. Recycling allows for paper, cardboard, and certain plastics to be collected and used again to produce new items. This reduces the need for factories to tap into our natural resources. So whenever you could recycle, it's advised that you do so. I know certain companies like Swimcall, they actually have the recycle bins available for the plastics that you could use in public locations. You can choose to reuse, get a reusable water bottle. So have your specific water bottle, and you can actually reduce the number of single-use plastic bottles that you have. Reduce, become aware of your water and electricity consumption at home. Remember, we spoke about this. So turn off the taps when you're not using it, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're washing wares, and electricity consumption, try unplugging, use less air conditioning at home. And repairing. Broken items can be refixed instead of being disposed. Your old bicycle, a toy you love, or even a cell phone can be fixed and made just as good as new. And the last one, repurpose. You can get creative. So old items can be given a new purpose. You could paint, old paint buckets can be used to grow flowers or even vegetables. We are using pallets as well and old barrels, and you can actually plant your own food in these as well. Sustainable agriculture. So sustainable agriculture focuses on the production of long-term crops and livestock while having a low impact on the environment. Yes, agriculture is very important, but we need to ensure that we do it in a sustainable manner to ensure future generations have the resources available to them as well. So we need to find a balance between proper food production and preserving our environment. That's very important. Some ways we can engage in sustainable agriculture includes conserving water. We realize that is a very important topic. So we use drip irrigation systems where the water is actually delivered to where it's needed at the plant's roots, rather than having like a sprinkler system that just has the water going all over. The drip irrigation system targets where the water is needed at the plant roots. You need to have responsible use of fertilizer and pesticides. So yes, sometimes we will need pesticide use, but what we do, you scout your plants. So when you have your kitchen garden at home, you will actually scout your plants, where that means you'll go and observe the plants and your leaves and stuff, inspect it for pests and diseases first, and then you'd spray. You don't just go spraying just like that. When you're using fertilizer, you have to be responsible and use it at the right rate, the right time, the right source, and the right place as well. And we also like to help farmers improve their technique to gain maximum profit without damaging the environment. So do some research, get some courses, be involved, plant your own kitchen garden, and all these are ways that you could reduce your energy consumption and help with climate change. So these are some examples. We have some pictures of a nice home vegetable garden. Okay? You realize they could recycle and reuse. You have plant pots, the bottom, they use a PVC. Home composting and organic farming, that's also very important. You could actually compost your fruit scraps, your vegetable scraps, eggshells, shredded paper, dry leaves, grass, and plants. Please do not put meat, fish waste, dairy, and animal waste in your compost heap. You will cause problems and worms. So look at the things that you can compost and start your own home composting system to get your organic matter for the plants that you have. And as I said, responsible use of fertilizer. So right product, right time, right rates, and right place. So I hope that our presentation was very informative and you enjoyed it. And we hope that you all will be stewards of the environment as well. I now hand you over to Varsha.
Thank you, Josanne. Hold on. Okay, yes, so thanks, Josanne, for that informative presentation. So Josanne works for a company, Nutrien, that produces fertilizer. So that's how she was able to have talked about, different aspects of being a sustainable farmer, encouraging home gardening, etc. I work for a company, General Electric, that has been innovating reliable energy and also clean forms of energy. So companies globally are now pledging to reduce, emissions, that's carbon emissions. So our company has pledged to reduce our net carbon emissions by 2030 to net zero. Like bigger companies like BP and Shell and there are a few others, they have also pledged that. So if you read the news, like CNN and BBC World News, you would have heard today that President Joe Biden has pledged to reduce, carbon emissions in the US by, also by 2030. And he's also pledged a $1 trillion package to create green jobs in the economy for, the US. And this is a great milestone because I'm not sure how much you know about the Paris Agreement, but that's a legally binding treaty where countries have participated in order to reduce their carbon emissions, and this is a step forward to help avert the climate crisis. The US had withdrawn that treaty back in 2015, just after President Donald Trump had taken up office in 2015. So now with the new President Joe Biden has, ensured that the US has rejoined that Paris Agreement. And, US is one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases. So this is a very, very commendable action, because it would give collaborative effort now globally how governments can help reduce emissions. And with green economies, and this is somewhat of a career guidance opportunity now for you kids, because you may think, okay, Trinidad and Tobago has been a traditional oil and gas based industry, but there is a whole horizon out there for you to look at opportunities to expand and looking at what you can do. In a green economy, there are so many new jobs. You can be a wind turbine technician, you can be a solar panel installer, you can be working in a company that generates green hydrogen from traditional fossil fuel burning, carbon capture, sequestration, and reuse. So I encourage you, and Josanne as well, will encourage you to go out there and read. Just, everybody has internet access, more or less. Just do a Google search on green economy, green jobs, because this is the time where you have to start planning your future and your career. So thank you again for the opportunity to have presented to you. And I hope that, you've learned something today. If maybe you've known some of the things that were shared, it's a reiteration, and, it's a message to remind yourselves how important averting the climate crisis is. So thank you very much.
I just wanted to thanks much, Varsha, as well as Josanne. I want to open up for questions. If you guys have any questions, please put in the chat. I will allow you to unmute your mics to ask your questions. We don't have much time, so we can take 3 questions.
Excuse. So, and you know how they start making electric cars and stuff now?
Yes.
So I was wondering if they continue to make like more electric cars, if that could also reduce in the gases from regular cars like us now, to go up in the air and make holes in the ozone layer.
Okay, that's a good question, and I see that you are, an avid reader, because you're learning about what different forms of carbon reduction can occur, in transportation. So in Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Planning has identified 3 key sectors in which greenhouse gases are the largest, the most abundant. So that's transportation, power generation, and energy industry. So the government has been working very assiduously to help formulate plans and policies to regulate the amount of greenhouse gases. And transportation sector is being very highly considered, because it's one of the, where you have the most amount of greenhouse gases being emitted. So in due time, because, everything takes time, because you require a policy that has to be approved by Parliament, the government of Trinidad and Tobago. So there is, thus far, I don't know if you know about the CNG gases that are used in vehicles. That's compressed natural gas. So that's a cleaner form of fuel as opposed to diesel. So those are some of the examples that are being, itemized and which exist right now. But electric cars and, there are hybrid vehicles on the market as well. Soon we would have those facilities and amenities to cater for electric cars.
Great, thanks, Varsha. We have a question from Kaden. Kaden, your hand is raised.
Yeah, afternoon, excuse me. When you say about how the earth temperature has risen so much compared to other years, I've been doing a little bit of research on my own, just like common Google searches, and what I've realized that a lot of people say that, but what a lot of other people are saying is that the earth temperature has fluctuated a lot throughout time for itself. So if we are comparing the time to now, and we're saying that it rises now, but like if we compare it like for not just like 100 years ago, from a while ago, and it could have been the same, but just because how we produce more carbon from factories and so on, we're more concerned because we're more trying to conserve for this generation. Is that true?
Okay, so so everything we've spoken about is based on scientific evidence. It's not assumptions or anything, because we would not want to present non-factual, information to you. And what you're saying is true. So the Earth has its natural tendency of warming, and that has been occurring naturally but human influence, or the word, the terminology anthropogenic influence, owing to industrialization, has accelerated that aspect of warming the earth. And if you were to log on to the World Met Office website, or even the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and you just look at, like, Google search graphs of global climate change, global warming, you would see how much it has accelerated over the last 5 to 7 decades. And that's when the era of industrialization occurred. So, there is evidence that supports that industrialization, influenced by humans, of course, have accelerated the climate change effects. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Varsha. Thank you, Keda, and thank you, Asha. We are just out of time. Josanne, Varsha, thank you for a fantastic presentation. I think we all thoroughly enjoyed it. These presentations will be made available to all of your teachers, so do look out for that. And I look forward to seeing you all in the other sessions. I want to just, before I leave, to just remind you that you need to attend 3 sessions to be able to obtain your certificate. So please remember to attend 3 sessions today, and you will be able to get your certificate. And just as we're leaving, let me thank our sponsor, Point Lisa's Nitrogen Limited, for sponsoring the HSE Youth Forum. Thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you all in the other session.
Excuse me,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Yes?
Before you go, this is my second session.